Hello, it's the evening of July 17th, 2025. And it's been a few weeks since I made a garden video. So today's a mercifully cool day. The high today was only about 70 or less. We've been having a lot of weather that was pretty hot and dry and muggy. So it's been kind of not a lot of fun to be outside working in that kind of weather. I meant to do this video a few days ago and highlight some things that were more prominent then, but we'll have to just catch the very tail end of some things like these wild roses here. Here's a smaller specimen, kind of on its way out. And I've been tip layering this one as it expands, trying to get it to make a little thicket. And so you can see the hedgerow this time of summer, and actually I should preface this by saying I have not done any mowing in most of this garden this year. So I feel like I'm kind of behind the 8 ball with keeping up on just the basic maintenance here. I did come through and do some pretty harsh pruning yesterday because we were supposed to have gotten another heavy rain storm with high winds. So in advance of that, knowing how that tends to snap branches off of things, you'll see on this persimmon here, I trimmed off a lot of top growth on some of these newer grafts that have been done in the last year or two, just because I don't want them snapping off. Like here, you can see the graft union there. You know, these things get top heavy, especially things with larger leaves like persimmons. They will get top heavy and they will snap right off, and so will pears. Anything that's been grafted, but especially things that either bear a lot of fruit like pears or apples maybe, or have a lot of leaf surface like these persimmons. Some of them have quite large leaves, and you know, fairly spindly branches to support those leaves. It's kind of off balance, so it helps. You know, it's hard to cut nice new growth of stuff, and especially to chop off half or 2/3 of what has grown this season. But I think that strategy will pay off in the long run, because then I have less chance of losing my nice grafts that I've done, and also, you know, the time, the money for the scion the waiting time, etc., etc. So you'll notice that as we get into the more grown-up areas, things look fairly wild and woolly. I did lose a number of my grafts from last season. We had a harder winter this last winter than we've had in a while. So unfortunately, some of my grafts from last year did not pull through the winter. So that's a bummer. And I meant to, here's some more pruning here. I meant to regraft. I had ordered scion wood and had intentions of regrafting some stuff. Here's some more cuts that were made to this tree yesterday. But the season kind of got away from me, as they often do. And that scion wood's just kind of rotting in my refrigerator, going to waste. So I decided a week or two ago, it was probably too late in the season. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to try it and see what happens. You know, it's better than just throwing the scion wood away. But I think the chances of it pulling through, you know, hardening off the growth and coming through the winter and surviving next year are fairly slim. And so rather than investing the time and energy into that grafting, I decided not to. So there's always next year, I guess, right? So here's an apple that's growing okay now that it's been protected. I feel like this whole back, what I call the back 40 here, which the northern half of the back 40 this way is growing up much faster and better. I think largely because of these suckering species like the sumacs, and there's also black locust and a few other things that kind of make thickets, and that helps kind of engender other plants to grow. So I'm not going to walk through the whole place and do a very long video, I don't think. Just show how things are looking. Again, these paths have not been mowed, and if I had a site that was more better at growing things, you know, there'd be grass that was waist high, or I mean chest or neck high. But as it is, this is kind of a poor site for growing things. So the growth is not all that vigorous, and you'll see there's some drought stress happening on these sumacs. They've got some leaves turning yellow. We're not in a serious drought here, but this site is drought prone, being on extremely dry, extremely well-drained sandy soil. So it doesn't take more than, a week of no rain and some hot temperatures to really bake the moisture out of the ground and start things, to dying off. So here, my dramatic looking orchard ladder over here, I did a bunch of pruning. The top of this pear tree, it was a few feet taller than that, and I chopped off about half the side branches too, because that pear, it just kind of finally healed over its graft union after like 3 years of waiting. So didn't want to snap that off. So as we get back this way, you'll see things are starting to feel more grown up and more kind of canopy closure and a wilder feeling to things, especially since I have not mowed. And since we're kind of past this inflection point of the summer, some of these sumacs and things are starting to kind of get woodier stems. So it's really not ideal to be mowing. And also I don't like mowing the grasses this tall because there's more danger of hitting a turtle or something that you can't see well. So I really kind of screwed the pooch here. I will mow, but I would have preferred to have done it a week or 2 or 3 ago, so that there'd be less danger of hitting a turtle or less wear and tear on the lawnmower trying to go through woodier stuff. So here again, I chopped a bunch off this grafted persimmon because its graft union, it's healed over basically, but it's not like really solid. So I didn't want that to die or snap off. And there's one there. I did the same thing. In this area, this is just Chestnutville. Lots of my bigger chestnuts here. This is a chinkapin, and it's got a lot of burr initiation. The flowering's kind of done. You see just the very tail end of a few flowers here and there, but basically done flowering. And yeah, it's amazing when you put a cage around something, how it can grow in one season. I would have been smart to invest in cages 10 or 15 years ago, more cages than I did, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just a lesson for anybody else who's starting out, pays to cage stuff. And then, the deer problems have gotten much, much worse over the time here as the habitat has grown up. I've encouraged a lot more wildlife, which I'm happy for. I'm really, that's one of the things I'm proudest of, is that there's way more wildlife habitat here than there was when it was just an empty field of weeds and grass and knapweed. But, you've got to work with the wildlife or live with it somehow, unless you want to just annihilate everything, which I don't, want to do. So, yeah, you've got to figure out what is going to eat your stuff and how to protect it from them. So in my case, it's mostly deer and rabbits, and sometimes voles. But deer and rabbits are the big two. So cages basically keep them out for a time. These kind of mesh tubes work well for certain things. I'm noticing that they don't work well for certain things also. Like currants really seem to resent being in those things. Pawpaws are not too happy about it. Chestnuts are not thrilled. I don't know. You have to kind of experiment, but some shrubs do pretty well in them. Trees, it's a mixed bag, but they're cheaper and easier and less of a commitment than the big metal cages. So I normally walk the other way, which is probably more picturesque than coming this way. But here you can see this wildflower garden. The yellow things there are compass plant. That's the first silphium to be in bloom here at the garden. The cup plants are following pretty soon. I noticed a few of those had their very, very first flowers today. We've got Monarda. You'll start to see a lot of Monarda here shortly. I've got oceans of Monarda. Looks like prairie dock back there has maybe got a couple flowers up too, that big large leaf thing there, those littler yellow flowers above it. So yeah, Monarda has been starting for the last 3-4 days, I'd say. Now we're kind of really getting into the Monarda season. And you got lots of wild pea back here, useless sea berries, more chestnuts back here, and maybe I'll just take a quick sort of pass through here. But yeah, the path itself is pretty, you know, here I've got things that are waist high. And unfortunately, a lot of my wildflower garden is being overtaken by stupid grasses like big blue stem, which big blue stem's great, little blue stem's great, but at a site like this, they tend to overreach. They kind of dominate and shade out or outcompete the forbs that I'd rather have flowers than grasses. I don't really want the grasses, don't really need them. I've got plenty of them, especially little blue stem. Some nice mullein. Mullein is fairly shade tolerant from what I've seen. I've got a really good one next to the old outhouse over there, which is kind of a funny placement given mulleine's reputation. But yeah, chestnuts are putting on some growth. They've got their typical chestnut leaf problems, probably a combination of drought and bug damage. And I don't know about disease. I haven't seen much disease. Hopefully I don't have the gall wasps here yet, but I may. I'm sure I'll get them eventually if I don't already have them. And that'll really set the trees back quite a bit more, but hopefully, you know, once the trees are a bit more established, they can bounce back a little bit better, or, you know, maybe a lot of them will just die. I don't know. It's kind of, I'm not going to go to war against nature. If that's what it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. Here's some St. John's wort, kind of past its peak of flowering. So I'm getting kind of like drifts of certain plants. Like this whole area has got lots of self-seeded false indigo, Amorpha fruticosa, and that's cool. In the early years, I didn't have any of that stuff that was self-seeding. I thought that was weird because it makes a gazillion seeds, but it took a few years for that to really start showing up as a self-seeded thing. Yeah, it's really much more attractive when I walk through the garden the conventional way. Look at these goldfinches up here. Maybe you can see them kind of sparring. Maybe I've kind of designed the garden to look a certain way, walking through it in one direction, you know, either on purpose or inadvertently, just because that's typically the route that I take when I either give a tour or do one of these dumb videos. Quite a bit of bird song around. I saw a couple new birds earlier today. I've scared up 2 deer on my walk going one direction through the garden today. Here's some gumi and little deer browse. So again, if I didn't have the cage, it's weird because deer don't browse gumi that much, and they don't browse autumn olive really much at all. But they know if you graft something, then by God, they want to be on that. So here's the wild river oats, kind of in an interesting moment before the seed heads have fully taken shape. So we'll walk through this mess over here. This has really gotten pretty thick. I've not chopped, you know, I need almost a machete or something to chop through this brush the way it's grown up. But I took a bunch of growth off this pear tree yesterday. Again, I've done that every year since I've grafted it, because I just know how pears are. So as we walk through the tangle here, you'll see lots of stuff. And, you know, things like this wild goose plum are really suckering out pretty far from the original mother plant. This Missouri gooseberry, really thorny, still no berries, even though I've got a bunch of other gooseberries growing in the area now, or in the vicinity, not like a few feet away, but a couple hundred feet away maybe. So we've got some grafts of pear that I've done, and there's a nice pawpaw. There's my nice hazelnut bush here that's got, it looks like a pretty decent crop on it this year. Something's eating the leaves off that. That's kind of a bummer. And I've chopped down some sassafras growth. Here's an apple that I grafted. That one is kind of leaning over. I need to chop some of the stuff away from it to give it more sunlight. Here's the pawpaw that I grafted a couple years ago, just emerging from its tree tube. Oh, and then somehow, even though it's dry, we're having a pretty good year of these white blackberries. These Luther Burbank, I think they're called Snowbank. Har, plan words. I just happened to walk past here. I have not been spending much time in this garden this year. as you maybe can tell. And these berries don't tend to get as large as a typical blackberry. And flavor-wise, they're not amazing. They're kind of just sour, slightly sweet, just, I don't know. It's nothing to write home about. It's more of a novelty crop than anything like some of these other different colored things that I have, but goddamn, there's a lot of them in here this year somehow. I don't know what happened, but this is the best, definitely the best year that they've ever had in terms of bearing. See if I can pick a couple of decent sized ones. A lot of them are kind of undersized, and then since these are sort of translucent, you maybe can see more of the problems with spotted-winged Drosophila or whatever else other bugs get into these, you know, soft fruits that are plaguing everything. So here we go. Maybe we can focus if the camera will cooperate. But yeah, that's, you know, these are decent sized ones. Now, if I was giving these some care and some pruning, hold on, let me focus again. If I was doing a better job of maintaining the canes, I'd have bigger fruit, pruning, fertilizer, mulch, etc. But these are growing totally just on a wild system on shitty soil. So yeah, they taste okay. They're like I said, nothing too amazing. Here's a gumi I grafted a couple years ago. No, I think I said this in my last video, but none of the gumis I grafted 2 years ago have fruit yet this year. So hopefully next year. Here's a little brush pile thing I did around these poor elderberries, and now that the leaves I threw, you know, they were green leaves when I threw them on here, but they've browned up since they were attached to their branches still. So that's kind of, now the elderberries are more obvious. So the deer, you know, that may have kept the deer off them a little bit. And you can see Monarda tends to always get powdery mildew. Doesn't seem to really affect it that much. They still seem to chug along and come back pretty well every year. Moth mullein, interesting, kind of slender relative and not fuzzy relative of common mullein. And the poison ivy is another thing that's gotten out of my control. I feel like I'm really slipping in my ability to rein some of these things in. Spreading wood chips around, dealing with poison ivy. Those are two big ones. Mowing, you know, is always something. So nice drifts of Monarda here. Now that Monarda is one of the dominant things back here, and sedges of some kind have always been big. There's an early type of goldenrod. Actually, there's one here, which is kind of amazing in mid-July. But anyway, quite a lot of Monarda back here, and you know, the pea, wild sweet pea. Now that pawpaw there has a few fruits on it this year. That's a first. And then I've got one or two pawpaws up here. This one straight ahead that had a fruit, or had a cluster of fruit last year, and I bagged it, and some varmint got to it before I could. Stole them away. So we'll see if this will be my year to taste a pea paw that I've grown. So there's a few clusters. There's, yeah, maybe half a dozen fruits or something in there, which is totally amazing. And back here, I want to say maybe this one had a fruit or two on it also. These plants have been here for at least 10 years, probably more than that, probably 12 or 13. And now the light's getting tricky. I thought I saw one or two on there earlier, but anyway, don't hold me to that. So as we come back this way, again, sorry for walking bass backwards through the garden in the way I normally don't. I feel like I'm a little disoriented myself. More Monarda. These cages all have blueberries in them. That's allowing the blueberries to grow a little bit better. And I feel like I've kind of missed blueberry season, not really paying attention to the garden for a few weeks. There's some shriveled up little ones in there, but that's about it. This bush is the only one that's ever really had many fruits on it. But I think now that I've got some cages on these, in a year or two I'll have more than I'm used to having. And you'll see some things kind of look a little dried up from the drought. And I've got, you know, wild grapevine going crazy, climbing over everything, and Virginia creeper, same way. Got wild blackberries showing up. In addition to the dewberries, I forgot to mention the dewberries. These little things are, not really great examples of dewberries. Let me zoom a little bit. So dewberries can vary quite a bit in size. Sometimes they're the size of blackberries, and sometimes they're small like this. And flavor-wise, they're really variable too. Some of them are excellent. These are kind of bitter, not great. Slight sweetness. There's some blackberries. Yeah, these aren't very good. Kind of a bitter flavor. So this jungle was just grass, but there was a tree here that you can maybe sort of see that the tree fell. There's a little crappy pond here that's got some kind of aquatic weeds in there. I don't know what that is. It almost looks like a mint. I'm gonna go see if I can check this out and identify it. I really don't come over here. If that's a mint, I'll be surprised. No, it doesn't smell minty. Looks like a mint, but just some kind of aquatic weed. But I've never put water in this pond. I've never done anything to it after the first year. I mean, it's been here probably 12 or 13, 14 years. I don't know. Here's some regular blackberries. Those will be black soon enough. And those will get larger, than raspberries do. And again, more poison ivy really bums me out every time I see it. Just don't know what to do with the poison ivy. I feel like it's gotten to the point where spraying it with vinegar is probably not going to be enough. I don't know. Need to get it earlier in the spring or early summer when it's just starting to show up. Nice drift of Minardi here. There's some late raspberries here. Get it when it's showing up while the ground is moist, so the ground is softer and it can be yanked out by the roots, because that's really what you got to do with it. I think, spraying it, if you want to get into some heavy poisons, spraying it might work. But with vinegar, I don't know. You probably have to spray it a lot of times. But yanking the roots out is pretty surefire way. So here we've got some honeyberries. Now, I had one or two, and they're probably all just fallen to the ground, whatever was there. But there are a few honeyberries that had maybe a couple fruits on them this year. And my elderberry that was here died, unfortunately. Got some wild grapes, some fox grapes coming on. That's nice. This flame willow got away from the deer a little bit, so it's got a couple branches that are reaching up for the sky, so that's cool. The Chinese tune tree is growing pretty strong. And what else? This Rose of Sharon is not flowering yet, but I've got my other ones are kind of starting to flower last week or so. Ooh, the Japanese Angelica looks a little ragged. I need to get that some water maybe. Rose, what is that? Rugosa Rose has got some nice strong growth there. That's a catbird maybe. Those things making that mournful sound. Kind of whiny sounding. So here, this area is kind of a mess and not a heck of a lot going on. I do have some little goomy seedlings, but I've had some problems with this bed. I've had chipmunks digging in here and screwed up with some stuff that these motherfuckers. See, look at this. They're burying stuff. God damn it. They're really screwing my shit up here. Son of a fucking bitch. Sorry for the cursing there. These goomy seedlings are pretty precious, and I'm trying to keep them alive, but god damn. Anyway, this part of the garden looks like a junk show. Not much going in the nursery. I have not propagated anything really this year. Do I have a Liatris still alive, or did the deer find it and eat it? I think I've got one back there that's hiding by this little pond. Hopefully it's still alive. So here I've done a hint of mowing up here, and you can see it looks pretty dry. Apple trees got some drought stress, yellow leaves. Daylily season still going. That lasts for a while. These are some kind of double flowered orange daylilies. We've got the yellow stuff is false sunflower heliopsis. That gumi over there, Carmine, did not have, well, it had one fruit this year. That was pretty disappointing. Tansy is not flowering yet. The what do you call this, downy sunflower is going pretty strong, and it's gonna flower here in a few weeks maybe. This chestnut, now I've got some notices from the power company that they're going to be trimming trees, and so far from what I can tell, what they've spray painted on, it's stuff that's along the road and not the stuff in this power line right of way, because I've not seen anything in this right of way that's been sprayed yet. So we'll see. Hopefully they don't come start cutting things down, but it could happen. But they're definitely going to cut some stuff down by the road, so that may affect how things look. You know, I haven't planted anything that's too precious by the road, knowing that that possibility exists. And plus, I don't want to interfere with the power lines. You know, I'm not trying to screw up the infrastructure here. I mean, I use electricity myself, so I totally understand the need to keep things clear. So yeah, my paths here, a lot of problems from both moles digging underneath and drying things out, and then plants seeding in, and deer footprints. This is not the most attractive time of day to film a video. It looks pretty ugly on my little screen here. Hopefully it comes through okay. Cup plants, something's screwing up the tips of, it's kind of the growing tips. I don't know what that is. I've had blister beetles and things on these before. There's a little something in there. Anyway, I don't think they're going to kill these plants. They're pretty tough plants. These pawpaws are not big enough to have fruits yet, but maybe in a year or two. I mean, depending on how they grow. And got some lusty growth of catalpa. A lot of that stuff snaps off whenever we have a big storm. Grafted pawpaw there. Got some butterfly milkweed there. And yeah, we pretty much missed the show. I think my last video hadn't really started yet. And this video, these are done. The wild roses. Maybe I will copy and paste a little 1 minute or 30-second snippet of the wild rose bloom when it was in full, you know, full blaze, and put it at the end of this video, because I did film a little bit of that. But yeah, that's kind of how things are looking now after a summer of neglect and very little mowing. The deer here, they're eating pokeweed. They're eating a lot of things that might surprise you. Milkweed, which doesn't seem like it'd be that palatable. Cup plant in some cases. Green-headed coneflower, eating that strongly. Rosinweed, mulberry, a lot of stuff. They got quite an appetite. And there's a lot of them around. So the other thing we missed is the peak gumi harvest. Now, I think my last video, they were kind of just starting maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, there was a good harvest of gumi. Ate some, probably wasted a lot of them. Birds probably got the better part of them. Now looks like they're all gone or dried up. And I still got to pluck these out and plant them in some real soil. And the ones that I'd been harvesting and eating and spitting the seeds out, some animal keeps digging it up. So these fucking assholes driving down this goddamn gravel road. I hope that guy fucking crashes. Sorry, I'm not in a good mood today. I hate people. So yeah, all this shit by the road might get cut down. It's a bunch of arborvitaes, some catalpas that seeded in accidentally, and redbuds the same way, so who gives a shit if they cut it down? It's fine. And maybe they'll regrow, maybe not. So this peach tree's got all kinds of leaf curl issues. I don't know if it's still holding any peaches. It had a few. Yeah, it's got some buggy peaches here and there. Don't expect much of that this year. Giant miscanthus grass is growing, sort of. I did harvest some of these daylily buds and ate them as a vegetable. I have enough daylilies going now that I can do that. This hazelnut's got its first few nuts, looks like. These hazelnuts here, these are Rock Shepherd ones. This one looks like it's got about nothing on it, and this one's got just a few, so not a huge year for those two bushes, although some of my hazels do have a good crop. This prickly holly, the deer eat that pretty readily. So anyway, sorry for filming at a not very scenic time of day, and for being in a bad mood and swearing a lot, and going the wrong direction through the garden. But anyway, it's a video, so I'm going to post it and take it or leave it. Get your money back if you don't like it. So that's how things are looking, and I hope things are going good at your garden. I will talk to you later. Thanks, bye. I'll also do a little walk through my side yard garden, which I don't really post on my YouTube channel or anywhere. This is a double hedgerow in a side yard. It's east side of the house. This is the house that we're renovating. And there's also a row of deer murdered arborvitae over there on the fence. There's an ugly factory across the street, noisy, ugly, polluting. So yeah, you'll see some things flowering over here. We've got some echinacea, some Monarda didyma, a little wildlife pond with some frogs. Nobody gonna jump in for me? Okay, well we do have frogs there, believe it or not. There's a mix of stuff over here. This isn't so heavy on the edibles. There's some things that will just try to survive the conditions we have here, which are more shade, walnut, allelopathy, deer pressure, believe it or not, in this a yard in town. So Solomon seal, the deer, I can't grow that anymore in my normal garden. They always get it, but they don't come into this yard as often. So they've kind of escaped the deer so far. We've got, hazelnuts and some viburnums, and here's a hedgerow and different hedgerow to the south side of a vegetable garden slash things that the deer eat too badly at my normal garden. So there's elderberries and currants and sunchokes and things. It's pretty much a mess. It's not well tended or well planted this year. I do not have enough time to do everything I want to do in life, so some things have to fall by the wayside. There's a couple willows that the deer don't eat. A lot of this wild lettuce, now actually they do eat some of that. This is something in the buckwheat family. Can't remember the scientific names, about 12 axe handles long. It's related to Japanese knotweed, but it's not that, and it's not invasive like that. And then over here I've got another vegetable garden, along similar lines to the one we just saw. Again, had to move things like elderberries and currants and some other vulnerable plants in here to get them away from the deer. But this year it's not amounting to much and doesn't look that good. The tomatoes got burned up in the drought, in the heat a few days ago, and they don't know how if they'll recover or not. Some of them look worse than others, some of them are okay. But anyway, there's a couple decent elderberries in here. There's another one. Can't remember the varieties off the top of my head, but they're all cultivars. And there's a jewel black raspberry. So yeah, my veg gardens, again, pretty poor this year compared to some other years I've had, but that's just the way things have worked out this year.